Now to the Middle East, where efforts are continuing to try to end the war in Gaza, now in its 8th month. Hamas has stressed its positivity and willingness to cooperate in negotiations on the new ceasefire and hostage release deal in Gaza, but it said it had not heard Israel confirm acceptance, as the US has asserted. Hamas has been criticized by US Secretary of State Antony Blinken for not yet accepting the ceasefire proposal. Mr. Blinken has repeatedly said that Israel has accepted the truce proposal outlined by President Biden on the 31st of May. Meanwhile, Hezbollah has launched a new rocket and drone attack from Lebanon towards northern Israel. It said that it's targeting a number of Israeli military sites. The fire service in Israel says at least 15 fires are burning heavily in the north of the country. They say the blazes are as a result of the barrage of rockets fired by Hezbollah from Lebanon on Wednesday. Officials said they'd also been caused by sparks from Israel's air defenses intercepting Hezbollah projectiles. With more of these stories, I'm joined now on the line from Tel Aviv by Arise Special Correspondent Carl Bostic. Good to see you, Carl. Let's start with those attacks by Hezbollah on northern Israel. What do we know so far?
Charles, good evening. Actually, this is like, if not the forgotten war, it's the second most important front of a war that could be a full-scale war that's actually more dangerous than what's happening in Gaza. That's because Hezbollah, sitting on the border of northern Israel, is the most powerful Iranian proxy with more than 150,000 rockets and drones, at least minimum. And now, what we're seeing is an escalation because since October, Charles, they always were saying we will continue, firing rockets into Israel in solidarity of Israel. But what's happened in the last 1 or 2 weeks, Charles, is this. Last week, you had a barrage of rockets and missiles going into Israel, Charles. You have to remember, this is now the beginning of the summer. A lot of dry vegetation. That part of the country, northern Israel, is basically evacuated. At least 60 to 80,000 people evacuated. So the vegetation has overgrown its dry brush. So you have wildfires spreading, which has become another obstacle for the Israeli military. And that's what's happening today. You've had at least more than 9,000 acres burning. No property damage, but a lot of fires going on. And really, Hezbollah said that until there's a full-scale ceasefire in Gaza, they'll keep, firing and pounding Israel. But it keeps escalating, Charles, because now the most senior commander for Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, the border with Israel, was killed or assassinated the other day. Yesterday, they fired more than 200 rockets and missiles into Israel. Charles, you got to keep in mind, this is not about just Israel against Hamas, Israel against Hezbollah. This could be a regional war. This could be Israel against Lebanon. Hezbollah is a proxy for Iran. This could spread much wider. And that's why the U.S. is very concerned. They don't want to have a regional war that could now, just erupt. And also, that's a main topic of concern at the current G7 summit that's going on in Italy that began today.
Well, indeed. And you mentioned there that it's raising concern that tensions along that Israeli-Lebanon border could lead to another confrontation between Israel and Hezbollah. What has been Israel's response? I mean, is there the appetite for another war?
Yes and no. I say that because it's unclear if they can fight simultaneously 2 wars at the same time, especially when the U.S. and Western countries are saying you need to stop the fighting and the war in Gaza, and the U.S. is the main backer. There's no appetite for that. At the same time, they're saying Israel has the right to self-defense. And what you have going on right now, Charles, the analysis here in Israel is this. If Israel does not act proactively, what's happened is this, Charles, is that because you've had the displacement of 60, 80,000 people in the north within a 5 to 7 kilometer or 6 mile range of the Lebanese border, completely empty since October. A lot of analysts here, Charles, are saying in Israel that Hezbollah is effectively shrinking the map of Israel. They are redrawing the map of Israel. Now you've got these fires happening, which really are not just regular seasonal fires, but now Hezbollah realizes that with a dry summer heat, the fact that there's no one there to cut down the vegetation, they can start firing rockets and missiles in Israel. Yes, the Iron Dome system is effective, but when that shrapnel falls, it's hot, it ignites a fire. Places like Kiryat Shmona, the biggest town in the north, about 25,000, but completely, the shrapnel is falling in backyards. So homes are catching fire. That's what's going on, and that's why Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited Kiryat Shmona last week. Security Minister Ben Gvir visited, saying that we are ready to punish Hezbollah. The worry is this, Charles. This could become a situation of Israel deciding whether or not they should go into southern Lebanon. And everyone is bracing for that decision, and they're bracing for a possibility of a full-scale war on the northern border of Israel, which would actually make Gaza look like something much, much less.
Well, we'll be keeping a very close eye on that. Meanwhile, talking about Gaza, there's been a response from Hamas to that new ceasefire and hostage release deal. Tell us more.
Well, you know what's interesting, Charles? It's this. It's that really neither side, meaning Israel and Hamas, they for their own internal political reasons, they don't have an appetite for a ceasefire. Hamas doesn't want to see a ceasefire because their survival is at stake. So they're making demands that they know will be unacceptable for Israel. And Israel has had its own political change. They had the rescue operation of 4 hostages last weekend. They've had the most, moderate or strict cabinet member, Benny Gantz, resign from the war cabinet. So you have a hardline Israeli government as of Sunday that basically says that why should we stop our military pressure? Hamas has come up with new demands. They are now saying that they want to see a commitment from Israel to a permanent ceasefire before the ceasefire even starts, which is in the minds of many Israelis here, Charles, where I am saying that that's like saying we surrender. And at the same time, they're saying that for this first phase of 6 weeks, Charles, after the first week, they want to see that Israel is beginning its withdrawal of its troops, the beginning of a permanent ceasefire. Very critically and crucially, and interesting, Charles, is this. Gaza, southern Gaza, where Rafah is the border with Egypt. That's the Rafah crossing, about 6-7 miles only, Charles. And keep in mind, Gaza's only like a quarter of the size of Abuja where you are. And Rafah's like an eighth that size. Yet that's been the main smuggling route for Hamas to get its weapons, its fighters, even its finances, money. But Israeli troops are now on that border, and they sealed it off. And now Hamas's new demand is that after the first week of a ceasefire, Israel has to pull back from that. I don't see that happening, Charles, and no one here in Israel sees that happening. So, in other words, they're making demands that they know that Israel will reject. And that's why, Charles, the security advisor chief, Jake Sullivan, who's now in Italy for the G7 summit, is now saying that there is no timetable even for a ceasefire deal.
Wow, it's very complicated, isn't it? Carl, thank you for untying that knotty affair for us. Carl Bostic is a RISE special correspondent talking to me there on the line from Tel Aviv.